I will not sit down here to tell you that it allows
someone like Yerima, who's not from the southern part of the country, if the state, I think is from, is it Zamfara State? Yes. Now, Zamfara State, from what I've gathered so far, has not domesticated the Child Right Act.
But it's an act of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, not a state law.
But there's always the issue of domestication of the law.
No, Nigerian, as far as Nigeria is concerned, the law has been domesticated in Nigeria.
So the Attorney General of the Federation would have been the one to deal with it.
That's the Attorney General. That's why I say the implementation of our laws, a situation where you have Attorney General who also doubles as the legal advisor to the government of the day. It's, before they take step, they look at the body language of Mr. President, or of the body language of the governor, or whoever. And so you find that rather than creating super institutions, you're creating super human beings. And that's why it is easy for people like Senator Ahmed Yerima to sit down on the floor of the Senate and say, this is anti-Islam. It's not an Islamic thing. Because even under Islam, an underage cannot inherit. And so, if you're presuming an underage to be of full age, and yet the problem associated with this, why Nigerians call for the removal of this section, is a situation where you now ask me to presume an underage because he's married to be of full age. And that it will get to a time, the underage will now ask me to presume her to be of 18 and above for the purpose of driving, for the purpose of voting. And so that section will be subject to abuse. Because originally, if you look at the mischief that the section intended to cure when it was included in our law, it is not to encourage people to abuse children. And so since it has outlived its usefulness, Nigerians felt, look, expunge it. And also, it also shows the kind of leadership that we have. The Senate coming out thereafter to tell you that we were blackmailed into taking a second vote on the matter, because as we all know, the matter had been laid to rest. A vote had been taken, and 72 senators, two-thirds majority of the Senate, voted for the removal. Immediately, Senator Yerima stood up to say it was anti-Islam. And because the senators probably did not understand the intent and purpose of the removal, immediately, even some that voted for the removal before hurriedly jumped ship because there was no understanding. And that's why the Senate came out to say we're blackmailed. And only God knows how many of such laws our Senate have been blackmailed into passing. How many of such anti-people resolution our Senate have been blackmailed
Let me come
into
in
passing.
Here. Let me come in here. In the court of law, how do you differentiate? How do you prosecute? Rule over a child abuse case, rape case, and what is the place of consent in those two?
That's what I'm saying. A child below 18 does not have consent under the law. She does not have consent of her own. That's why you cannot say she consented to this act.
What is the place? How do you then?
Because the Child Right Act dealt with that, copiously. And so, when you now ask to presume, because now, like I said, I maintain that you cannot read both sections in isolation. You have to read them together. And so, when you now begin to say, initially you presume that a child, for you to get married, must be a full age. And so now that people are marrying children, abusing children, that section now had outlived its usefulness and will be subject to abuse. And so even if you go to court and ask for interpretation of this section, the court will always tell you that you cannot read them in isolation. And it would be safe to say that the presumption or the assumption at that point is not for you to marry an underage. It's an assumption where you cannot truly determine that this person was born on so and so date, but that person is married, because the presumption is that once you are married, you are of age before you get married. And now that we have a society where you have pedophiles everywhere, people are marrying underage, and so it is safer, so that you will now not come to me and ask me to presume underage to be an adult. It is safer for us to expunge that part so that there won't be confusion. And so in determining consent, the section already had defined full age. It has defined full age. The other subsection flows from the first paragraph. He is deemed to be. Then the other question, the other problem you're going to have is, how about a situation where I'm not able to determine this lady's age and yet she's not married? So does that mean she cannot renounce, her citizenship? So that's also a lacuna. That was why, we need to look at all of these things holistically and truly do away with that section, because it will discriminate against some people. And then it would have been safer also for Ahmed Yerima to come out to say this is purposely targeted at me. Because from what I learned, even some of his colleagues in the Senate had, since he married the 13 years, had been throwing banters at him at some point. And even when the matter came up, when it just happened, you remember some senators calling for his resignation, and he said Islam allows him to, and then also that to him, you see the narrow-mindedness of our lawmakers, that Islam is supreme to our constitution. That's a senator of the Federal Republic that sworn to uphold the letters of the constitution. And so when you
but
put all
from
of this
what
together,
we
but
got,
it would be difficult if
what,
he had said it is targeted at me. He wouldn't have swayed.
Yes.
So what you now have is use religion, and that's what religion, ethnicity, culture to divide us. Once you throw religion into the arena, people become scared.
Okay, but Senator Yerima was said to have claimed that he did not marry an underage girl, and yet nobody has been able to come up with an evidence to say, yes, the girl he married is an underage.
Because you know what they call Puda up north. If you pick up the Punch of Tuesday Punch, where some of the women were, if you look at the back page, where some of the women were attending a Ramadan seminar, they were all covered in black, in hijab. And so it will be difficult for you to even determine who is an underage amongst them. But people that know had said, look, this man married an underage. And so he would tell you, Islam also does not allow you to see my wife. Because that's why where women are in the north, they call it Bashiga, no entry. And so that's why we need to have institutions that are working. You don't have to look at the body language of Mr. A or Mr. B, or the position of Mr. A or Mr. B before you prosecute him. Once he runs foul of the law should ordinarily take its course.
Okay, Joe, some people are saying that why did we have to wait till this point to raise this issue?
I mean, first and foremost, I just want to respond to the fact that Yerima married an underage girl.
Exactly.
And at that point in time, even Women Arise and all other women groups will carry out protests, series of protests. That is one. Secondly, that why did people have to wait at this particular point in time? For a very long time, we've been clamoring for the convocation of a sovereign national conference. That did not take place. We had series of constitutional amendments. In the light of this, the resolution came up that by the time it's going to be revisited, they should have a committee, and then this section 29, subsection 4B should be expunged. It wasn't really as if people were waiting. We have always been speaking out. There have been series of protests carried out. Women groups have, come out to raise to give their voices, to also ensure that this did not see the light of the day. But at this point in time, when Nigerians expected that this aspect of the constitution should be permanently deleted, that was the time this came up. And those, like he said, those who wanted to hide under the cloak of that constitution because it's renunciation of citizenship. Again, if the president has to make that declaration, he has to ensure that the Nigerian state is not physically involved, also make sure that it's not against public policy, and in the light of that fact, also make sure that that person is of full age, which has been clearly defined. That person must be 18 years, but the contradictory aspect now is saying that anyone who is married is of full age. So the thing about it is that people have always drawn their attention to the contradiction of that constitution, and we have also said that it contravenes the Child Rights Act.
In fact, to add to what Doctor is saying, it was memorandum submitted by the people. during the town hall meetings that gave rise to this. It wasn't as if the Senate just sat down to say, we want to amend this section. It was people's memorandum that, look, this section had lived its usefulness. We need to amend it. We need to delete it. Just the same way people suggested that, look, our local government need to have autonomy. Just the same way people say we desire state police and all of that. And so Senate sat down. And then the contradictory aspect of all of this is that in spite of what the people believe, in spite of the people's opinion that we don't want this section, Senate sat down and decided it's not a rule of the minority against the majority. You know, fewer people sitting there in the hollow chambers to decide contrary to what the people had suggested, that look, this is what is good for you.
Okay. Now, if we were to look at the issue that some people have raised, they're saying that what Senator Yerima has done is something that should be in the courts. But why are we not seeing any prosecution?
Because we have weak institutions. See, it boils down to the same thing where J.J. Rawlings came in recently and said, look, situations where you see superhuman, politicians who are stealing the nation blind, who are also still parading themselves as leaders, as stakeholders, and then you, who, you know, is who a man who stole a chicken is charged to court. Let me give you a contradiction. Just 2 weeks before the Senate pensions matter at the Federal High Court in Abuja, a man stole vegetable worth 5,000 naira in Abeokuta, and he was jailed for 2 years or an option of 10,000 naira fine. And the worth of the vegetable is 5,000. So he's to pay 10,000 naira fine or go to prison for 2 years. And then somebody stole 23 billion. He was jailed for 2 years and then given an option of 250,000 naira fine, which he just paid from his back pocket and walked home. And so that's the contradiction here. You say, that's why it's convenient for Ahmed Yerima to come out to say, look, it's anti-Islam, because, you know, we allow him to still remain a senator. You have people who have charges hanging over their head as parading themselves as honorable members.
Is it anti-Islam?
It is not anti-Islam.
Is there anything in the Quran that allows for marriage of children?
I just told you that you see here it's more of a cultural thing, because even if you go to some villages around, once your parents presume you to be of age, they marry you out. If we can remember, some of our parents, as far back as 60s, 50s, 70s, were married out at the age they did.